that you've looked at the inside of a stem, let's talk about the outside of the stem. And for this, you're going to have to learn some new terminology. And so as this tree grew, or this branch grew, it started its growth here at the tip. And this is where you'll find these little, what's called buds. Now, these buds consist of a bunch of leaf scales. These leaf scales are basically small leaves that evolved to protect the sensitive growth tissues at the tip of a branch. So these little scales, when they break off, they leave behind a little scar. So you can see that while it just looks like a stick, it is made up of a bunch of little parts that are evident of the growth, the previous growth. So if we go from the top down to the bottom, we'll kind of break this down. Here we have the leaf bud, and that is this year's growth. This is the most recent growth. You might see some scars here, and those are from leaves that have broken off. Now if we go back, we're essentially going back in time, right? This is the newest growth, and we're going to older growth and older growth. Well, last year, this plant had a leaf bud just like this. Once the plant grew past that, all of these little buds then fell off too. And it left a little ring, and I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like a little collection of tiny leaf scars. Now if you follow that back, you should find another little ring that also has a collection of old leaf scars. So this represents 1 year's worth of growth, because this was a bud from last year, and this was a bud from the year before. And if we keep going back, we'll find here's the bud from a year before that. So this little stick has become an object of identification and a little piece of plant growth history. We'll now focus on this little tip here, the growth tip, and we're going to give that a name, and we call that a meristem. And a meristem is anywhere on a plant where you have a lot of growth, cellular reproduction through mitosis. So this is an apical meristem. It's the meristem at the tip. And it's a little hard to see, especially since this is all dried up and not something that we can really investigate. But if you go home, you'll probably find a really great example of a meristem in your refrigerator. Here we are in my kitchen, and I'm about to make a salad, but I grabbed this purple cabbage, and cabbage is a great example of meristem tissue. I've cut it down the middle, and you can see that right here in the middle is where those new leaves are forming. This is an apical meristem. On the side, it's not very clear, but there are little buds that could develop into branches, although that's really unlikely in this cabbage. But we call those auxiliary buds, and these are auxiliary bud primordia when they're really young. Down the middle here, we have this pith tissue. That's that white tissue here. And along the edge, it's not really clear in the video, but there's a little line, and that's cortex. This is a cool example because it's so big, but you can't really see the detail in those meristem tissues. So for that, you should look at a slide and see if you can't identify those tissues on the slide of the coleus meristem tissue.